it allows the public not to suffer through my comments. So
It's a gift.
It does let people in like an order, so.
it allows the public not.
All right, Mayor, we're broadcasting.
We are broadcasting, and this is always an ongoing learning experience. By the way, welcome to everybody to the 19th edition of the virtual Mayor's Breakfast. We understand from one of our panelists, Gayle Israel, that sometimes not everybody gets in quickly and they miss the first part of this. So I thought I would at least welcome everybody, make the introduction a little bit slower from the start, so as people filter in, they don't lose as much. But I want to thank everybody for joining us. Today we have Gayle Israel, who is a chief of staff of our county supervisor, Gayle Andersen, who has a previous engagement and couldn't make it. But Gayle's here to fill in and to give us the latest updates on the county and our levels, our different color levels and what's going on and the ground rules as they always seem to change. I am really delighted that our community service director and our parks director, Kathi Heimann, here is to join us, and she is going to talk about all the things the city is doing to make this a very special Halloween for our children and all the events going on. That's great. And of course, joining us again is Dr. Patrick Joseph, who will have a little presentation to us on the latest updates on COVID. And I've got to say, as I do every time, Dr. Joseph, I am always learning. We're all learning stuff about this disease and how we can all handle this. And your advice and the things you share with us makes this a lot less scary and gives us the confidence of how to go from day to day and to be able to make the right decisions for our families. So we all appreciate it and thank you for what you do. So I will start this now that most everybody has joined. As I'd mentioned, this is the 19th edition of the virtual one, but this is also the 109th Mayor's Breakfast we have had over the years. We're going to have 2 more Mayor's Breakfasts before my term comes to a close. That'll be November the 13th and our last one on December the 4th. And then hopefully the next new mayor of San Ramon, who the voters will eventually choose in a few more weeks, may choose to continue this. I hope they do. So again, I want to thank everybody who's participated. Some of you have participated over the entire long 9 years. And I have found them to be very useful, not just to getting information out. I have found them to be useful for what I hear back from residents who attended at our Clementine's restaurant. We were able to do that, and from the questions we're receiving now. Having done that introduction, I'd like to reintroduce Gayle Israel, again, Chief of Staff of our County Supervisor, Candace Andersen, and to give us an update on what's going on with the county and with our COVID levels. Gayle.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to step in today for Candace. And I'm honored to have been a San Ramon resident since 1995. And I have appreciated very much working with Mayor Clarkson for the past 8 years. And I wish him well in his retirement from public service as an elected official for the city. But I know we'll be still seeing him around quite a bit. So for the COVID update, we were expecting to move into the orange tier next Tuesday, but unfortunately numbers have trended up and it is looking like we will just be shy for the metric that's needed in cases per 100,000. We're still hopeful, but it is looking like we're not going to make it this Tuesday. We need to then meet these criteria for 2 weeks again to move to orange. But in anticipation of moving to orange and more things being opened, I do want to let you know what that means when we do move into the orange tier from the red tier where we are now. So you must have less than 4 new cases per 100,000 residents over a 7-day average. As of yesterday, we were at 4.3 new cases. So that's where we're shy. There's an adjusted rate for increased testing that we don't think we'll meet, but it's a possibility. You must also have less than 5% test positivity rate, and we meet that. We're in that range at 2.1 positivity rate. You must meet the equity metric of less than 5.2% of tests for residents of the lowest quartile of the census tracts being positive. And we're doing very well there. We're meeting that currently at 3.9%. Some things that we are doing to help the disadvantaged communities is we are having more testing in those communities. We're working with health partners that specifically serve those communities. We are combining tests with flu shots. We have more Latinx outreach, and we're utilizing ambassadors in those communities. We are working with the trusted partners that were created during the census. We have more focused outreach through media and messaging. And we're making sure that those who test positive know that hotel rooms are available if they can't comfortably self-quarantine at home. When we do move to the orange tier, retail businesses will be able to operate at full capacity instead of 50% where we are now. Restaurants and museums can operate indoors at 50% instead of the current 25%. Places of worship and movie theaters will be able to operate indoors at 50% occupancy instead of the current 25, or with 200 people maximum, whichever's less. Gyms can reopen indoors at 25% instead of the current 10%. And one that will be very popular, indoor pools will be able to open when we get to orange. All personal care services, including massage, can open indoors with modifications currently in all tiers. Indoor shopping malls will be able to operate with no occupancy limit, but common areas will still be closed. And higher education institutes will be able to resume indoor lectures and student gatherings at 50% occupancy instead of the 25 we have now, which is 200 people or whichever's less. Outdoor playgrounds have now been open since October 14th in all tiers, and skate parks too, which is great news for kids and parents of small children who have been itching to get back to the playgrounds. So importantly, COVID does remain in the community. In the last 14 days, San Ramon has seen 31 new cases with a total of 400 cases over time. That is a case count of 481 per 100,000. Our neighbor to the north, Danville, has seen a bit of an uptick. They have 40 cases in the last 2 weeks, a total of 378, but they have a smaller population than San Ramon does, and they're averaging 861 cases per 100,000, which is concerning. Alamo has seen 10 cases in the last 2 weeks, which brings them to 121 total. But given their much smaller population, they're averaging 820 cases per 100,000. We currently have 23 patients in the hospital in Contra Costa County, with 255 hospitalized in the Bay Area. We do continue to be worried about a double surge of flu and COVID that has the potential to overwhelm local hospitals. And a person can contract both viruses at the same time. County Health is strongly recommending getting flu shots. I got mine on Tuesday. The county is offering free flu shots at COVID testing sites, including the site in San Ramon. And the county is also having a free flu shot drive-through clinic in San Ramon at the Costa Senior and Community Center on October 30th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And the city is working in conjunction with the county on that. More information about COVID testing and flu shots can be found at cchealth.org. And now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and provide an elections update. So we reached a couple of milestones this week. Contra Costa voters registration now exceeds 700,000 for the first time in history. And that's with a county population of about 1.1 million. Our early returns are also higher than ever in history. You might be seeing some news reports about the large number of vote by mail returns across the state. And as of yesterday afternoon, our election department has received over 260,000 ballots. Our turnout is already above 37% with 11 days still to go. For comparison, in the March primary of this year, we only received 246,000 vote by mail ballots and 330,514 ballots total. And that was a turnout in this primary in March was only 50.3%. So returns are nearly split between ballots returned through the mail and ballots returned through our secure drop boxes. As a result of these early returns, the elections office hopes to have far more ballots in the initial count on election day than in the past. They expect to be able to include all ballots in the election day count that are received by Saturday, October 31st. The county is doing regional early voting sites, and those will be open next Friday. And that does include a site in San Ramon at Amador Rancho Park. The sites will be open on Friday, October 30th from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday, October 31st from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Monday, November 2nd from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. The next closest site in the county is in Alamo, and that's at the LDS Stone Valley Chapel next to Monte Vista High School. And that is the end, Mr. Mayor, of my county report.
And you will be around for questions after the fact.
I will, yes.
Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to bring back our Assistant City Manager, and that is Steve Spedowfski, for an update on what's going on in the city.
Great, thank you, Mayor. And again, if you have any questions for today's broadcast, please email them to me at info@sanramon.ca.gov. And building on the voting info that Gayle just provided us, we do have drop boxes in San Ramon. If you haven't dropped off your ballot yet, we have 3 indoor locations. One is at 2401 Crow Canyon Road, which is the Police and Permit Center. The 2 other indoor locations are at City Hall and also the Senior Center. And those are open during normal business hours, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5, for you to drop them off if you want to drop it off indoors. And then we have 2 outdoor locations. One is located at the Costa Community Center and the other one at Doherty Station Community Center. And those are the secure outdoor drop boxes, and you can drop them off at any time. I also want to remind residents to follow us on social media, and also you can sign up for alerts on the city webpage. If you don't have social media accounts, you can sign up your email, and we provide weekly updates via email as to what's going on with COVID and anything that might be coming up, an emergency situation. And the reason why I mention this is residents may have heard about the public safety power shutoffs. We avoided them last week in San Ramon. This Sunday and Monday, it's looking like conditions are picking up yet again, where we may receive those alerts. So again, if you sign up for the emails, we will be sending out, if it does look like we're going to have power shutoffs, we'll send that out via email. And also you can follow the city, and in particular our PD, Captain Carlson tweets out information as it comes out by the minute regarding power shutoffs. So that's another good source to follow. And then the other thing I'd like to mention is later on today, there will be a key ceremony up at the Faria Preserve by the Sentinels of Freedom. It's basically Sentinels of Freedom and Lennar Homes are providing a home to a military service member and his family rent-free. So today there is a socially distanced key ceremony that's going on. It's by invitation only, but we will get photos and post what we can so everybody can see that. So that's a great event that's happening today in San Ramon.
Thank you, Steve. And I'll be up there joining you as we give the keys to that retired veteran. And also on the wind advisory, I was at a disaster preparedness council meeting before this meeting, and Officer Carlson had said that they're expecting the highest winds of the year this Sunday, and that they do anticipate the power may be turned off for a while here in the valley. So Sunday is supposed to be a windy day. The other thing I wanted to share before I bring Kathi on board to talk about the city and Halloween, as you know, I really enjoy sharing San Ramon's history to our residents and digging into stuff. And one of the things I wanted to share was one of the themes about San Ramon's history is how much of it we have lost over the years. And in particular, I'm sharing a screen of San Ramon's here old train station, which was obviously along the Iron Horse Trail. And in fact, located very close to where Costco is and Fostoria was our old train station. I'd like you to focus a little bit on this sign there that was a part of our train station. It was torn down in the 1920s. And we heard rumors the sign existed, but it had been lost. And a couple of years ago, I took a walk through the old Burrell property, which was, once Mr. Burrell passed away, he donated his 17 acres of orchard to the East Bay Parks. And I got a chance to walk through the different barns that are out there with our director, East Bay Parks, Beverly Lane. And I came across this old sign that was attached to a wall in one of the old barns. And we had conversations over the years about getting a part of San Ramon history returned to us because it technically belongs to East Bay Parks. And we were arranged to be able to do that. The sign was in pretty sad shape. And the city, along with the Historic Foundation and the remaining money with the San Ramon 150 organization, was celebrated at San Ramon's 150th anniversary in 2017, combined their resources. They found an expert in restoring signs, and the sign was restored. It was returned to San Ramon this week and was installed up at Forest Home Farms inside the tractor barn, which used to be, for those folks who've gone on the San Ramon history tour, the old Flag Railroad station in San Ramon many years ago. And if you go to Forest Home Farms, you can visit and see the restored, that is the actual sign restored to its original condition. With it is the artist who actually took the time to restore it. And we're so appreciative of the city and to East Bay Park to allow us to bring back a piece of lost San Ramon history. It's interesting, if you were to go by train, it's exactly 57 8/10 of a mile to get to San Francisco from San Ramon back in those days. Probably less than a 2-hour trip by rail. Steve, thank you for allowing me to share that. And with that segue, I'm going to introduce Kathi Heimann, who played a big role in bringing that sign back to San Ramon, and to share about what the city's going to do to make this Halloween special for our children.
Well, I am so happy to be here today because it is a great thing to talk about all the fun stuff that we're going to have for Halloween. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go share my screen because I've put together some slides that I think will help show you what we've got going on. All right. I'm assuming you can all see that?
Yep, we're good.
Wonderful. Well, like I said, I'm very excited to be here to talk about Halloween. You know, this year is challenging as we all are dealing with the pandemic, and the call went out from the county that we really needed to dial back on that trick or treating. And so the Parks and Community Service Department said, what can we do to make it more fun for families this Halloween? And so we've come up with a whole host of great activities that I think the community will enjoy. So one of the very first ones, a really easy one for everyone to participate in, is a virtual costume contest. So you can enter, kids, adults, pets even. It's all free to enter. You just need to enter by November 2nd. So if you actually decide to get dressed up on Halloween, it's not too late. Snap a picture, and then we will announce the winners on our website on November 5th. Now, the good part here is everybody who signs up and sends in a picture will get a commemorative 2020 Halloween Happenings ribbon. So you're going to want that someday. It's going to be a piece of history. So everyone should enter. We've got great categories for all ages. Best group of 2 or more, most original, youth and adults, best homemade, that's important, scariest, and then best Halloween pet costume. And you can see on the screen 3 of our already entrants. So you'll want to get those costumes on, get the kids out, and start dressing up. Now, we also, if dressing up's not your thing, but you have a little Halloween decoration left at home, we are doing a Halloween home decorating contest. Again, it's totally free to participate. You can sign up online on the city website. And this is kind of unique because you don't have to have a giant amount of Halloween decorations or go out and buy a lot of stuff to make that happen. You can just enter by your decorating your front door or even a window or your yard. You have an option to be included on the Halloween home tour, but if you don't want to be on the tour, you can still enter with your picture. And so then we'll have a community voting online. So even if you don't decorate, but you still want to get in on the fun, you can vote for who you think should get all of these great awards. So we'll have a skeleton award for the spookiest one, a pumpkin award for the most family friendly, a cornucopia award for the best fall harvest theme. So even if you just want to decorate your door for that kind of fall harvest, a hand carved award for the best do-it-yourself, upcycle display, and a cauldron award for the best door or window decor. So again, everyone who participates gets a ribbon, and you're going to want that ribbon, let me tell you. There's this lovely quote from one of the people you'll see at the bottom. Thank you for setting up this contest. We're going all out to bring some Halloween fun to our apartment neighbors. I think that's the feeling out there in the community. So this is a great way you can participate. Now, this one I'm pretty excited about. This is a brand new idea. We've never tried anything like this. We are having a scarecrow scavenger hunt in Central Park. Now you say, oh, it's got to be socially distanced. Well, this absolutely is, because starting at 5 p.m. on Monday, October 26th, we will be scattering over 26 scarecrows throughout the park. And so what happens is you can show up to the park and walk through the park and try and find all 26 scarecrows. We've added another element because we've got a new fun Goose Chase app. And so if you download that app, then when it'll give you clues, this is really fun for kids and adults, follow the clues and find the scarecrows, and you take a picture with your phone and you participate, and it keeps score for you right on the app. So super fun, interactive. You can play it over a couple of days, so you don't have to do it all at once. You can enter anywhere in the park at any time, and that keeps everybody moving around and enjoying themselves. We're really excited about this because it also involved our business community. So we've had several businesses sign up to create scarecrows. Our local foundations have created scarecrows, and even the city departments like the police department and the engineering department have all stepped up, created scarecrows, and a lot of them are decorated to those themes. So it's just going to be a lot of fun for everyone. And again, if you don't want to use the app, you don't have to. It's still fun to bring your little ones and see if they can spot them all. Now, you mentioned this, Gayle, the senior resource fair. So it has a Halloween theme. So we don't want our seniors or our adults to feel left out of the Halloween happenings. So we are having our senior sweets and treats drive-through senior resource fair on October 30th from 1 to 4 at the Costa Senior and Community Center. So this is going to be a great hands-off kind of socially distanced event. You drive through and our community center staff will greet you with a mechanism that will hand you your goodie bag from 6 feet away. They'll have an opportunity to drive up to some of the select vendor tents, and you'll get additional information that will be handed to you at a distance. There'll be emergency personnel on site to answer questions and provide information on preparedness. And as Gayle mentioned, we're really excited to partner with Contra Costa County Health Services because they'll have the drive-through flu clinic going there at the same time. So this is a great opportunity for seniors and families with seniors to pick up information about all the services that are available to them in San Ramon and the surrounding area. A lot of times we all deal with our aging parents and we don't know what to do because we haven't figured out how to manage senior services. So this is kind of a one-stop shop. You'll get a bag filled with resources that you can then take home and go through at your leisure. So hopefully everyone will stop by the senior sweets and treats. Then the fall fun's not ending. We still have fall fun at Forest Home Farm. So we mentioned the depot sign, which you can see a picture of the group who helped fund that. I think the mayor mentioned San Ramon 150, the San Ramon Historic Foundation, the city, and East Bay Regional Parks partnership to make that happen. But also, if you visit the farm, you can see all of our wonderful farm animals, our sheep, our chickens, our ducks, the little lambs. You can learn all about what life was like in the olden days. And we have a new self-guided tour with another app. It's called the AutoCast app. And it actually has videos of our docents going through scenarios of what it was like back then. And we've also got more interactive fun with our Agents of Discovery app. So you can bring the kids out, and there's some new challenges, and they're Halloween themed. And so they can use that app, which will lead them around the farm to have some fun. So visit the Tractor Museum, come to the farm, enjoy some fall time with family and friends. It's open Monday through Friday from 10 to 4. I mean, it's a great opportunity next week to celebrate Halloween and that kind of fall fun feeling. Now, I couldn't help but mention this one event. I know it's not on the Halloween theme, but how could I leave it out? Our Culture in the Community event, which traditionally has been in October, has been moved to November, and it's gone virtual, but it's gone virtual in a big way because we've got over 60 entertaining videos that community members have submitted celebrating different cultures through dance, cooking demos, and more. So it'll be just like you're at the event, but it'll be on video. We'll have an event welcome from the mayor, a poem from our poet laureate, educational workshops, even a craft kit pickup ahead of the event while supplies last. There's an opportunity for business sponsors, and it's really not too late to get involved. So if you want to go to www.sanramoncultureinthecommunity.com or the city website, you can get more information on this great event. It'll start on November 13th, but don't feel like if you don't catch it right on that day, you're going to miss it, because we will leave all of this great, wonderful virtual access up probably for the next month. And so that really kind of concludes the exciting things that are going on in Parks and Recreation. Of course, we'll have more, and we've always got classes and activities for all ages. So we're managed all the social distancing, lots of things outside. And so we hope that everyone will participate and have some fun with us.
Thank you, Kathi. And I really hope that a lot of these things you created might become a tradition going forward.
Me too.
I think that'd be a great idea. In fact, I was thinking of home decorating. I don't know if you've seen this yet, Dr. Joseph, but there are a couple of homes that their home decorating costume, the house, has a huge, like 15-foot mask in front of the house with strings around the back.
That's fantastic.
Amazing. It is. And that's a great segue to introduce Dr. Patrick Joseph, who has been our resident go-to person on COVID over these last 6, 7, almost 8 months now. We so appreciate everything you bring to us. I'm looking forward to this morning's message. So, Dr. Joseph, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see if we can pull up the slides. Steve, are they showing?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Well, we're gonna, these are the topics that I thought we might discuss today. A little bit about a change in a definition. There has been a lot in the news about reinfection and vaccine. And typically what I try to do is sit down and think about the questions that I've had since our last meeting and address those. And I use that as a meter of things of public interest. So the first thing is that 2 days ago, there was a change in the definition of a close contact. Now, let me first say that this is important for contact tracing. This is what is used if an individual is concerned that he or she may have been exposed to someone who has become positive. So this is important at the workplace, at schools, perhaps with acquaintances. When an individual calls you or a contact tracer calls you and says, you may have been exposed to someone who is now diagnosed. Previously, the definition was with less than 6 feet, with or without a mask, for 15 consecutive minutes. So a long conversation with someone at close range. With some new information from schools, this has been changed to 15 cumulative minutes. So at the workplace, this becomes important. If you're talking to someone for 5 minutes, 3 or 4 times a day, at a range of less than 6 feet, and that individual turns out to be positive, that meets the new definition of a close contact. And as you can see from the top of the slide, this is only 2 days old. So again, this really applies mostly to workplaces or acquaintances if you are notified of someone that you may have seen, may have talked to, or know who has been diagnosed. Now, I'm using this slide to introduce the concept of reinfection. This is an artist's sketch of the coronavirus with the RNA inside the shell. And what's in the hand tweezers is a very, very tiny portion of the nucleic acid, a very tiny portion of the RNA that is used for diagnostic testing. So when we talk about doing a PCR testing, we're really only looking at this tiny little portion of a very, very long strand of RNA. And this tiny little portion has been selected because it's common to all strains of the coronavirus. However, all strains are not the same. And the nucleic acid sequencing here is really different among many strains. So far, the changes in the sequence only define the strains, but they have not yet defined that one strain is more infectious than another. Now, the value of looking at these long strands is to tell us where the strain came from. So, for example, the coronavirus cases in the West Coast came from Asia. The coronavirus cases that caused the hotspot in New York City and on the Eastern Seaboard came from Europe. So it's pretty easy to map the origin of this by looking at the nucleic acid. So what has happened is that the news has reported that selected individuals have been infected twice. And that's new. And the way that has to be proven is that the virus from the first strain is sequenced. That's looking at the nucleic acid sequence. And then an individual gets well or recovers and then gets a second infection. And for it to be a reinfection rather than a persistent infection, it has to be a different strain. And indeed, that has happened. And let me give you an idea of how commonly it happens, or probably better said, how uncommonly. In the United States, or in the world today, we have approximately 41.5 million cases, and there are 5 individuals who have a proven reinfection. And I will suggest to you that this is clearly an underestimation. There likely are more than 5, but it is going to remain very rare. In the United States, where we have about 8.5 million infections, there has been one person proven to have a reinfection, that an individual who was infected once, but then got infected again with a second strain. That was an individual from Nevada. And then you can see there are 4 other countries where there has been one case. Now, if you imagine to prove a reinfection really means having access to the virus from the first infection and comparing it to the second one. And that is quite difficult. So I'm going to suggest to you that this still remains a rare event with only 5 proven cases, probably even more rare than individuals who get chickenpox twice, or individuals who may get measles twice. That is rare. This is probably even more rare, but we want to understand that it can occur. Because of its rarity, there's no change in the current guidelines, thinking, or discussions, meaning that once a person is infected, he or she is likely immune for at least 90 days. This just shows the rarity of an exception, but no changes that immunity probably exists after infection for at least 90 days. And as time goes on, all of us, of course, are hoping we can extend that comment, extend that axiom, hopefully for 120 days and continuing on and on and on. So that's where we are with reinfections. You should know about it, but nothing to worry about. Now, an update on the vaccine. This is where we are as of this month. There are 11 phase 3 trials going on in the world. These are thousands and thousands of individuals. All of them include tens of thousands who got the vaccine and tens of thousands who got a placebo, and then they are followed. They're followed with both blood tests for the development of antibody and the persistence of the response to the vaccine, as well as those who may get infected. 2 of those trials have completed enrollment of 30,000 persons. Now that's the number that's necessary. And according to the guidelines from our Food and Drug Administration, once a trial enrolls 30,000 people, the clock starts. And then those 30,000 have to be followed for 2 months. And then it can be submitted to first the NIH and then the FDA. We now have 2 companies who have achieved that endpoint, Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech. And since they completed it, we're now in that 2-month follow-up period with planned submission to the FDA by the end of November. Very exciting to see what the FDA feels about the trial. So they will be comparing those 30,000 persons who got the vaccine. Looks like I missed a 0 when I typed that. It's 30,000 persons each, not 3,000. And they will be comparing the 15,000 who got the vaccine with the 15,000 who got the placebo. It's also worth noting, because it has been in the news and many questions that I have received, what is going on with the 2 trials in which they have been halted because of side effects. And one of them is the Oxford AstraZeneca trial, and the other one is Johnson & Johnson. Both of these trials are on hold. The Johnson & Johnson has described an individual with a medical complication, but there's no further information, but they have halted the trial themselves. The Oxford AstraZeneca trial, we know a little bit more about. This was halted about a month or 6 weeks ago because of an individual in England who developed a neurologic problem called transverse myelitis. It has since been restarted in England, but not in the United States. However, it's this same trial that made the news last week because one of the individuals enrolled in the trial died. Now, I want to preface this before I go to the next slide. The circumstances around the individual who died have not been publicly released by either the Brazilian Health Service or the company that has the vaccine. The information that is being released comes from the Brazilian news, yet it has not been contradicted, and it has not been claimed to be false. Now, when I do something like this, and we do this frequently at the CDC, we have to be sure that we understand the source and the reliability of the source. So this may or may not be accurate, but it looks pretty good. What you see on the left is that this is the vaccine trial that was halted. It is the Oxford AstraZeneca trial. The person who died was a 28-year-old physician, a frontline physician who treated many COVID patients. He died on October 15th, so died very recently. And he died of complications of COVID infection. He didn't die, according to the Brazilian news, he didn't die from the vaccine, but rather he died from getting COVID. And as you can see, he is an individual who treated many COVID patients. Now, reportedly, and again, this is from the Brazilian news, he was not a vaccine recipient, but rather he was in the control group. The AstraZeneca trial is on hold in the United States because of the previous complication in England, but it is not on hold in Brazil. So this may be true. In fact, I probably would go as far as to say it's likely true, but we don't have a release yet from the Brazilian Health Department or the company. Now, while we're still on the vaccine, I have shown this slide before, but let me introduce it again. There is a nonprofit international organization called One Day Sooner, and The name of the organization comes from, if we can prove that a vaccine works, one day sooner, we will save thousands of lives. So individuals can volunteer to receive a vaccine and then be exposed intentionally to the virus. That is, you get a vaccine, wait 2 weeks for the antibody response, then you get put in a room where they aerosolize the COVID virus. And so far, 39,000 people have signed up for this in 166 countries. Now, this is very unlikely to ever be proven or accepted in the United States due to our human experimentation laws that are actually part of the Federal Register. But that's not true in other countries. In other countries, it is going to be acceptable to voluntarily expose oneself to the virus. And that's what happened this week. This is a picture of a young woman who has in the United Kingdom, and she has posted this picture of herself. Her name is Danica Marcos, and she has received the vaccine, and this week she will voluntarily be exposed to the coronavirus. So this is now been approved in the United Kingdom, but not in the United States. I have no comments about the ethics about it, but I am very interested in the results. And that's about as far as I will go. This is just informative that it is happening in the United Kingdom and likely will happen in other countries, but not here. Now, following that, one of the questions that I get very frequently is, how do I volunteer? No one's called me. There's nothing in the newspaper. No one has asked me if I want to participate in any of the many studies that are going on with COVID in the United States. So there is a federal network, and that is the website at the bottom, www.preventcovid.org. And it lists all of the trials that are going on in the United States and how to volunteer for them if you so choose. And it's not just vaccines, there's many, many other trials going on. All of them are geared to prevention, at least all of the ones to which you might be interested are geared to prevention. So this is how one gets access to the trials if so interested. Now, the last topic, or at least getting close to the last of the topics I want to discuss today, is the United States compared to the European Union. Now, let me start at the top. I don't want the slide to mean versus. I just do that for brevity, but I want to compare what has happened in the United States to what has happened to the European Union and perhaps introduce some stuff that I have not yet discussed. This shows the number of new cases, not total cases, but new cases in Europe compared to the United States. Europe is in blue. So we go back to March and we see that Europe had a big uptick, and this is mostly due to the problems that got wide press in Italy. The uptick in the United States was a little bit later, went a little bit higher, but this is probably true in many countries. There was an uptick around March as we learned more and more about this virus. But what I want to show you here is look what happened in Europe. They went way, way down in the number of new cases, and the United States dropped only a little bit and then is going back up. And so the question is, what's different about Europe compared to the United States? Now, there were theories about this for many, many months until we got involved with Google. Google has a community mobility report. Now, I'm not an expert on this, but it describes the mobility of people that are completely anonymized. That is, they're not releasing any names if they have it, but by cell phone activity, they can create a mobility report. And this is just part of the examples of what they can do. They can look at a population and they have a baseline and then see what has happened. So let's just take the top one, retail stores and recreation. You can see that for this period of time, there was a dramatic reduction by the populace in this area that was sampled of going to retail stores and recreation. Same thing here with grocery and pharmacy. Same thing here with parks. So what it turned out was that in Europe, there was a dramatic reduction of mobility. People stayed home. And I don't know if you recall, but Italy shut its doors nationally. We don't have the ability to do that in the United States, to my knowledge, but that's what happened in Italy, and many other countries in the European Union did the same thing. Now, that's why they had such a dramatic reduction in new cases, and we did not. So the Google Community Mobility Report has now confirmed that that's the reason that there was a reduction in Europe that we did not see in the United States, really based on public activity. And these 3 topics that I've shown here, for example, are only 3 of 12 things that can be measured. So Google has gotten into this in a big way. Now, as I said, I'm not an authority on this, but having discussed this with people at the NIH, they are, and they feel this is extremely reliable to tell us how much our United States population, as well as population of other countries, are cooperating with recommendations. Now, the next thing is that this report, since it's electronic, can be nationwide, statewide, county, city, and even a large community, such as Brooklyn as opposed to Queens, Manhattan as opposed to Long Island. And it can show you what's going on in various areas. A lot of this information is available just by going on the internet and looking at it, but it is now thought by the NIH to be an extremely reliable index of cooperation with preventative measures. So now let's go back and talk a little bit about the United States and the European Union. I've put these 2 arrows on here because this represents Europe. So we actually stopped the first slide right around here, where the European Union had a dramatic reduction in new cases, and the United States did not have so much of a reduction, in fact, was increasing. Now look what's happened. The United States shows a decrease, and Europe is taking off like a rocket ship. And again, the Google Community Mobility Report shows that this is relaxation. I should say it is consistent with and commensurate with relaxation of preventative measures in Europe. In other words, they're getting tired. We're all getting tired of masking. We're getting tired of not being with family, not going out, not having parties. And this is what has happened in Europe. And unfortunately, as was mentioned earlier, in our own county, we're starting to see an uptick. These are total United States data. They clearly will vary by community, by county, but people are getting tired. And you can see this. So the Google Community Mobility Report is helping us understand this and hopefully helping us to get new guidelines as to what direction we want to go. And finally, at least I think finally, let me show you and emphasize what we do. We don't have a vaccine yet. We don't have a drug that prevents it. So these are the 5 basic preventative measures. If we do these, we can prevent COVID to others and to ourselves. Universal masking or cloth face coverings that we've discussed so many times. Physical distancing is really, really important. At least 6 feet. Now, all of these are not perfect. So yes, it is possible that a shedder of COVID can spread it to someone more than 6 feet, particularly in a closed room with few air exchanges. But these guidelines really will prevent 90% of the cases. Avoid crowds in congregate settings. We know this is going to be tough. We're coming into the holiday season of Thanksgiving and Christmas. The weather is going to change. We're going to be forced indoors rather than outdoors. It's a time for family. It's a time for congregate settings. And all I can say is this is going to be difficult. All of us in the field of epidemiology and science are concerned. And then the last thing is, let's not forget hand washing, or hand sanitizing. So Steve, I've got about 10 minutes before 10. Do you want to stop now and take questions, or do you want me to go on for a few more minutes?
If you'd like to go on and wrap up, and then we can stop the screen sharing and then take questions out of work.
Yeah, okay. You know, I didn't know how much time we were going to have this morning. This is another question that I frequently get, and that is herd immunity, and what is it, and how do we get there? It actually comes from herds of cattle who had brucellosis, and it was understood then that if the majority of the cattle had already had brucellosis, then the herd was immune. Now we translate that to the cartoon on the right. All of those who are gold are immune. All of those who are red are infected, and those who are green are susceptible. So the green are susceptible, the gold are immune. When one achieves herd immunity, if an infected person gets into the crowd like any of those red persons, it's unlikely that they will cause a problem. Herd immunity doesn't mean there will be no infections. What it means is an epidemic or an outbreak is unlikely. So we want to achieve herd immunity in the United States. It's impractical to think we will stop this virus completely, but if most people are immune, then we'll stop an outbreak. And the question then comes, how many people need to be immune to create this concept of herd immunity? And what is often not understood, as you can see on the left, is it really varies by disease. So for diphtheria, the threshold is 85%. For measles, we need over 90%. Go down to the bottom for smallpox, only 80%. So the calculation of what is necessary for herd immunity is an epidemiologist's backroom calculation, but it really depends upon how infectious is a virus. What we see on the right is the estimate for COVID-19 is about 60%. And we are not close anywhere in the world. So that's our target right now. Based on what we know about this, if we can get 60% of the people in the United States or in any location immune, we will likely achieve herd immunity. So in concept, currently, this is our best solution to a new pandemic. A new pandemic means there is likely no natural immunity. There is natural immunity to many viruses. That means that our human genome makes us immune to a lot of viruses, most of them that are carried by animals. But in a new pandemic, there is likely no natural immunity. We're not close to herd immunity anywhere in the world, but if we get there, new infections will continue, but they will be slow. We've discussed about how do we slow those with the 5 basic preventative measures. And I should say that there has been a very bright group of scientists who have come out with a thing called the Great Barrington Declaration. Great Barrington is a city in Massachusetts, and it creates an interesting controversy. The controversy is focused protection, where we only use the 5 basic preventative measures for people who are most likely to have a complicated disease, and we let the rest of the public run wild. And I don't mean that in a derogative way. What I do mean in science is that controversies are part of science. They're part of medicines. When we don't have the answer, it is common to have opposing viewpoints and then to debate those and look at what is most likely. In fact, for more than 15 years, I have moderated a national session on clinical controversies where we don't have the answers in an Oxford-style debate. Well, I will say that most of the opinions right now are against focused protection. Most of the opinions right now are favoring the 5 basic preventative measures for the public at large. And lastly, it is unlikely that we will see herd immunity in the United States or anywhere in the world without a vaccine. So Steve, that was the last few slides. Let me stop there and we'll turn it back over to you. And Mr. Mayor, once again, thank you very much for the invitation. Always a pleasure to join a panel like this of great community leaders. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph, and thank you as always for giving us the context we need to make smart decisions from day to day to day. Thank you very much. Steve, at the time we have remaining, what kind of questions do we have?
We only have a few that haven't been answered by the presentations. It seems like Dr. Joseph just knew what was coming and kicked it all off with the presentation. But I do have a question for Gayle, and it's regarding somebody emailed in. It's clarifying the tier moving. And does that mean that we're starting the new 2-week clock over? And it looks like a November 3rd tier move is now out of the question because we're not hitting that mark.
Unfortunately, yes, you have to maintain those numbers, meet those metrics for 2 weeks, for a 2-week period before you can move to the next tier. So if we don't hit the numbers on Tuesday, which it's still possible but not expected, then we have to be another 2 weeks of hitting those numbers before we can move to orange.
Right. And then another question, does anybody know of any other Halloween activities countywide? I know it was just coming across one of my news feeds as we were speaking that the city center through the 29th through the 31st will be hosting a costume contest. They have a selfie wall and then there's a hashtag. You take a picture of yourself in front of it in your costume, and then they're going to award prizes. So that's at the city center. But Gayle, do you know of any other Halloween activities?
I do know because through our office, the county health officer approved the plan for this. The San Ramon Valley United Methodist Church in Alamo is having a trunk or treat drive-through on October 31st at 3 p.m. And it looks like it's open to the public because their Facebook page is asking people to spread the word. So a drive-through trunk or treat.
Great. A question for Kathi. What are the ages eligible for the seniors sweets and treats resource fair? So
Well,
we define senior.
Well, here's the great thing about that resource fair. We're encouraging everyone, all families who have seniors in their lives, they are welcome to come and get the resources that they can share with them. So you don't have to be 55 plus or 65 plus, and you can self-define what you think senior is. But we would encourage everyone who has someone that's in their life that's a senior to show up and get the resources.
Great. And I do have one final question that came in, and this one's for Dr. Joseph. With regard to vaccine status, have you heard about the peptide platform that Flow Pharma of Pleasant Hill has developed?
Yes. Thank you for the question. Vaccines are typically 3 platforms. The newest one that is most popular by the 2 vaccine companies that will be submitted to the FDA uses nucleic acid. It's a molecular platform. Both of them are using messenger RNA. The second platform is a virus vector, where you modify a mild virus to produce proteins that will make us immune. And the one that's used most often is an adenovirus. You get a shot with a live adenovirus, and then you get a minor infection with an adenovirus and it produces proteins. And then the third one is just grinding up grinding up the virus and giving particles of the virus, either whole or split or ground up virus, and using that as a vaccine. It's dead virus and looking at the immune response. The new peptide chain is very interesting because it's synthetic. What I mean, peptides are really, really easy to make in a laboratory. And that becomes important. So what one can do then is create peptides that represent either the vaccine spike, which is thought to be the most important part of attachment, or any of the surface proteins, that they're all made up of peptides, and inject that into a person. It has 2 advantages. One is that it's really easy to make and inexpensive, and massive production can be done in months. I mean, you can make 100 million doses in a month. The second thing that makes it attractive is that it's not living. It's not molecular, so it doesn't get into one's host cells, and it creates an immune response. So I think that represents the fourth platform that is exciting, part of what the whole COVID pandemic has taught us, and that's new ways to produce a vaccine. All of that said, it's not in production yet. To the best of my knowledge, it's not into anywhere near phase 3 trials, but it certainly is exciting and worth watching.
And then I have a question for Dr. Joseph, and you've answered this before 3 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago, but I'd like to revisit it, which revolves around, because of Halloween, if children get treats from packaged treats, you had mentioned that that is safe for children to receive treats that are wrapped in packages. Is that correct? And is there a period of time you have to wait? What's the usual protocol?
Well, food is an unlikely vector to transmit this virus. So let's start off with the wrapped food. Take something as simple as a candy bar or wrapped hard candy. The food is fine. If there is a risk, it's the wrapping. All right. So let's take the worst case, and let's just assume that this won't happen locally or in the United States. But someone who is a very heavy shedder of the virus sneezes or coughs on the wrapper of a candy bar, and that candy bar is picked up before the virus dies. And then whoever picks it up now has this virus on their hands. That does not cause infection. Causing infection means putting your hands to your face. So that is an extremely unlikely situation, but let's just say it's within the realm of possibility. Breaking that chain anywhere prevents infection. And the easiest way to break the chain is if a child or an adult picks up wrapped candy, when you unwrap it, just wash your hands. Don't put your hands to your face. Just unwrap it and don't put your hands to your face. Unwrap it safely. And then when you take the candy, just be sure you wash your hands. Anywhere along that line will break that extremely unlikely scenario. And the reason I say it's unlikely is so far in the United States, we have not traced any outbreaks to food or wrapped products. So that gives you an idea of how unlikely it is. But again, the common sense, the number 5 of the basic preventative measures, wash your hands.
The RNA can remain on a package for a while, but it's not viable. Is that?
That is correct. So we actually have done many studies where we will use a Q-tip or a cotton swab a doorknob, swab a laboratory surface, and get those little pieces of the nucleic acid of the RNA that we use for testing. But those viruses are not infectious. So the presence of a positive PCR test does not define infectivity or contagiousness unless a person has been exposed and is symptomatic.
So when you get home, wash your hands.
Wash your hands. Wear a face mask.
There you go. Steve, any last minute questions?
Nope, that's it, Mayor.
Gayle, any closing comments before you're done?
I have none, but thank you everyone for watching, and I'm very well informed by the other panelists, and I appreciate it.
Kathi, I'll give you the last say. Anything to update us on?
Well, nope, other than everybody have a fun and safe Halloween and get out there and enjoy some time in the park with your family.
I agree. Have a great, safe weekend. See everybody.